Hello and welcome back to another video feature of the Immersive Worlds Handbook. Today I'm focusing on this feature on existential space, and the specific issue here is the issue of social control and consumer space. So as you might see in the video here, I've blacked out much of this video essentially to disguise the participants in this video and to disguise the exact space where it was. Let me just say that this was a space where I was doing a series of video features that I've been working on for the Immersive Worlds Handbook, and what happened was that security personnel in the space found that my taking of these videos, my making of these videos was disruptive for the space. So I wanted to use this aspect of space and my research in it to focus on this existential issue of social control. Social control, as we talk about it in social science, refers to any situation where someone in power, in this case security guards, have the ability to control what the individual is doing. And of course, in a consumer space, the nature of that social control is to focus on the guest and to control him or her in such ways as seen appropriate by those agents. So in this particular case, clearly I stood out, and the individuals in question felt that my videotaping wasn't appropriate for the space. I explained to the individuals that in fact what I'm doing is promoting all sorts of consumer themed and immersive spaces for the Immersive Worlds Handbook, and then in fact these videos that I was shooting for this particular consumer space were quite positive and celebratory in terms of talking about the theming, the architecture, and the decor. So I use this example not necessarily to express to you the concern about a researcher like me going out and shooting on-site videos, but to ask any operator of a themed immersive consumer space the question, how much social control is appropriate in a particular space? To that end, we might also ask, to what extent can one exhibit or express social control? What does that look like? Of course, you have issues like queue lines and making sure guests don't cut in queue lines and things of that nature. You also have obvious security issues. And believe me, having worked in a theme park myself, I understand the issues associated with any consumer space, and I can see why security guards like the ones in this space pictured here did have a concern. At the same time, I think there's a value in any space because these have become essentially the public spaces. Consumer spaces, shopping malls, theme parks, casinos have in some ways, for better or for worse, replaced or supplanted the civic gathering places of the past. The lakes, the parks, the spaces of nature where people gathered, and in some extent still do gather in these spaces. But consumer spaces have taken that over to some extent. And so for me the question is, going along with social control and consumer space, the question is, to what extent are guests given the right to be in these spaces and use these spaces as they like, to express their own identities and to express their own sensibilities of being around others in a public space? So going along with social control is this question of, to what extent are consumer spaces public? So I think for this existential feature we might think about these two issues, the last one being to what extent are consumer spaces public, and the first one, the overriding issue here on agency and social control, is the extent to which one, as an operator of a themed or immersive or consumer space, can and should exercise control over the guests in that space. It's something for us to think about in this feature, and I hope you'll come back and listen to additional video features for the Immersive Worlds Handbook, and specifically these new features I'm offering on existential aspects of consumer themed and immersive spaces.